Hello everyone and welcome back to another deck guide, this time featuring like a lot of stuff. There's a lot going on here, but it's a 3-axis deck based on putting 2 level 3s on the field, which then slap into a rank 3 XZ that gives us access to an entire engine. That's the general idea. Basically, this is my attempt to counter a very board breaker heavy meta by making a nearly unbreakable board if we go first, but it's not a full-on glass cannon combo deck. We have a backup plan for Droll and Shifter, and we have enough starters and extenders to play through some amount of disruption even if the opponent is playing hand traps. So if you've been looking for a wacky combo deck for Genesys, then let's get started. Our first engine is one of my favorites, the Goblin Bikers. Starting with our best starter, Tour Guide is a staple in rank 3 decks that when normal summoned can then special summon a level 3 fiend straight from deck with negated effects. The normal target in Goblins is Mean Merciless, but we're not playing her in favor of a much stranger target we'll get into later. Terrortop is another common starter for Goblins, and can special summon from hand if we have no monsters, then Search is another Speedroid, which is always Takatomborg, since it can summon from hand if we control a wind monster, like the Terrortop itself. That turns Terrortop into a rank 3 without using our normal summon, and unlike most decks that run Takatomborg, it's not really a brick for us since we run quite a few other winds that let us special summon it from hand even without the top. While these are our best starters, they do cost us 3 points each, so we're at 18 already. In general, this is a pretty point-heavy engine at 71, but that does still leave us enough points to play some solid board breakers. Then we're on to Goblins themselves. Doug can detach a material from an Exi on either field to summon himself from hand, then when summoned searches a Goblin spell trap. Boommock can also detach a material to summon, but from either hand or grave and as a quick effect. Clattersploder can reborn a Goblin on summon, and during the opponent's turn can detach a material, again from either field, to summon itself back, which then triggers the reborn. Last up is Gone Wild, which is our only level 6, but it can be normal summon without tribute if we have only goblins or an empty board. Then, on summon, it specials another goblin straight from deck. And then when sent to grave, it can also attach an opponent's card to a goblin Exi we control, so it can be an end board piece if we use it as material to detach on the opponent's turn. We're only playing one of each goblin. While technically Doug and Gone Wild can act as starters, they're the worst ones in the deck, and we have 19 full combo starters even with them at 1. We also have a bunch of conditional or partial starters, so we really aren't hurting for them either way. We do have a couple of goblin spells. Grand Breakout is one of our best extenders by letting us quick effect tribute a monster to summon a goblin from deck. That lets us dodge targeted removal and get value out of it in addition to being part of our combos. Less importantly, you can banish this from grave and detach materials to make your opponent's board lose attack to help you finish out a game. And then lastly for goblins, Grand Bash is needed for certain combo lines and gives your goblins a bunch of attack, gives you an extra normal summon for specifically a goblin monster, and lets you modulate levels so you can bring Gone Wild down to a 3 or anyone else up to 6 with him. Then we're on to engine number 2, Materiactors. These guys are funky and based around using and reusing a level 3 normal monster for rank 3 XZs. Starting with Gigadra, which can discard a card to summon our normal from hand or deck, or if you discard the normal for cost instead, you can summon any other Materiactor. Exoraptor can reveal itself in hand, discard another card, then search our normal to hand and special summon itself. It's also a pseudo-honest since you can discard it to give a rank 3 1500 attack for the turn. Both of these are starters that take our normal summon, but Gigadra in particular doesn't get you drolled and is more flexible in general, so we like it more, so we play 3 Gigadras and 1 Exoraptor. Then lastly for Materiactor names, we have 1 Zeptwing, which can special summon itself from hand if we have another Materiactor on board. Cool. Then when summoned by any means, either this or straight from deck, you can add a Materiactor card from deck to hand, then special summon a normal from grave if you have managed to put one there. For our normal, I'm playing Dokuyo Raiba for a couple of reasons. Most importantly, it's a fiend, so it pulls double duty as our Materiactor target and as our Tour Guide target. While it doesn't have the graveyard effect that Mean Merciless has, our main combo goes through Zeptwing to bring it back, So it represents the same number of bodies, and then we don't have to play 2 bricks. Any level 3 fiend works, but Dokuro Yaiba happens to be the one I had lying around in an old box of cards. Funny enough, the OCG has a vanilla exclusive called Dark Shade that never got ported over and would be a better target since it's a Wind Fiend which enables Takatomborg, but it's a very minor difference. Lastly, for this engine we play 1 Materiactor Critical, which is an Omni-Negate counter trap, but to use it we have to return a material from a Materiactor Exes to hand, so we have to keep one on our end board. Then it has another effect based on what card type the material was, but we only ever use monsters, so you add back the material, then you have to put a card from your hand on bottom of the deck. It's not a net negative, but also not a net positive. You can think of it as kind of card filtering. Next up we play a Radiant Typhoon engine of 3 Eldum, 3 Swen, and 3 Chant. Eldum can summon from hand if the opponent has no back row, like if we're going first, or if we have MST in grave. That searches Swen, which does all of the same stuff, but searches a spell, which is Chant. Chant can search Eldum or MST, which completes the triangle. Basically, any one of these searches another one of these, which results in 2 bodies, which is a free rank 3, and then also a free MST, and most of the time it doesn't even take your normal summon. Then we're on to the one that probably looks the most out of place, Argo Stars. The thing is that there's a rank 3 that starts this engine as well, and they add a lot to the end board. They're also the backup plan in case of Shifter, since Argo Stars itself is a Shifter deck. Audra is the whole engine. When normal summoned, she activates a lingering effect that prevents the opponent from responding to your traps for the rest of the turn. More importantly though, you can banish her from field to place both of our trap monsters face up on the field. She's also a battle trick that lets us drop an opponent's monster to 0 attack until end of turn by banishing her from hand. Giant Slaying lets us search Audra, then if we have a trap monster on board we can normal summon her. Then we can banish it from grave to bounce one of our traps and an opponent's monster. Home Stadium is our field spell and lets us pay 1,000 to return a card from grave or banishment to hand, which is why we don't care about Shifter. It also lets you negate a card on field every time you activate a trap monster's effect, but the negate activates in a new chain, so you can only hit slow effects like ignition speed effects and the like. That's 10 isn't technically an Argo Stars card, but might as well be. It's a continuous spell that gets a counter every time either player activates a card or effect. Each counter gives your monsters 100 attack, but more importantly when you hit 10 counters you can bounce this back to hand to set a trap monster straight from deck and make it immediately live. It's sort of a weird extender, but if we open it and a starter, it translates to 2 extra Omni Negates on our board. Then for our traps, Taidu can discard a card to summon herself and search any Argo Stars card to hand. Both Argo Stars can then bounce back to being traps at any time to dodge monster removal, and both have an effect as traps. Taidu's is to give your warriors 500 attack. Etio makes your warriors indestructible by card effect, and when your opponent activates an effect, you can summon her and non-targeting bounce any card on the field. Importantly, these are all soft ones per turns, and we can search 2 Etios as part of our end board for 2 bounces and 2 slow negates. Last up for traps are the Apophyses, Serpent and Swamp Deity. Serpent is normally the one that you set off of That's 10, which is great because it then can activate it to summon itself and set Swamp Deity from deck, which is also immediately active. Swamp Deity can summon itself and negate cards on field equal to the number of other traps you have. Finally, I'm running 1 Tracker and 1 Wielder's generic extenders that just summon from hand if we have a level 3 on board and help us fight through an Ash or a Ghost Bell. You can play as many or as few of these 2 as you want, and you can take them out going second for more non-engine as well. I think 14 non-engine main deck has felt best since we're almost certain to see 1 piece each game, but not likely to brick on 3 or more. We have 29 points to spend here, and with a big engine and not a lot of points, breakers are the obvious choice. 1 Droll represents our only hand trap, mostly because it felt like the most impactful thing to do with 5 remaining points. 3 Book of Eclipse cost 15 and start us off strong, 3 Dark Holes are a steal at 9 points, and Ultimate Slayer hasn't gotten to point cost yet, which is criminal. 3 MSTs help with back row and are searchable off of the Typhoon cards, and I want a little more spell trap removal so I have 1 Cyclone in the main as well. On to the extra deck, which is the real meat here. Gabonga is our access to the Goblin engine by searching Doug, and can also attach a card to itself to help with breaking boards or as an uncommon end board piece. Similarly, Exegard gets us Matereactor access by special summoning straight from deck, but this one stays on the board so that we can use its other material for critical. Emic Saber Invoker costs 33 for some reason, but lets us summon Audra from deck to get the full Argo Stars combo, which means any 2/3s can establish a board through Shifter or Droll, albeit a little bit of a weakened board. Totem Bird is a spell trap negate that we can make if we have extra wind monsters, which we often do. Torpedo is the most cuttable thing here if you wanted to play Aggregator instead as a good Slayer target, but he draws us a card if we find ourselves with some extra bodies we don't need, and then gets used as material for our big boss monster. Fortune Tune lets us attack in to make Zeus, which means any 2/3s turn into a board clear to help with going second. Utopic Ray Lancer is here to turn a 3 into a 4 for reasons you'll see in a moment, or just as an end board piece that drops monsters' attack and negates effects if the opponent tries to go to battle phase to Zeus us instead. Arion can be made with any Argo Star's body and searches us the field spell to help set up our end board. Lars takes 2 6s, which we only normally get if we open Grand Breakout, or that's 10, but gives us an extra Omni Negate if we do. Zeus breaks boards off the back of Fortune Tune, and then we have to talk about my guy, Utopic Future Zexal. Zexal can be made with any 2 Xyz of the same rank. The most common pair is Gabonga and Invoker, but there's times when we can make and use Torpedo instead or as well. Since we always make Arion, being able to turn a 3 into Lancer means that we can make 2 4s to overlay into him as well. That's why we're playing 2 of them. So why go through all the trouble? Well, Zexal gets attack equal to all ranks of all of our Xyz monsters times 500, and also all Xyz monsters in the opponent's graveyard, less relevant. He counts as a rank 1, so he starts at 500 and scales fast. Just as Zexal and Exegard becomes 2000, and that's basically the weakest end board we make. Zexal and Lars goes to 35. It gets crazy. But even more than the attack, he has some insane effects. Firstly, nothing on board besides him can be targeted for either an attack or any card effects. That means that while he's out, the opponent can't MST your back row for starters, but they also can't target their own cards for any effects that might require that. I love Virtual World, but they lose the second this guy hits the field. Lastly, when the opponent activates a card or effect, you can respond by permanently gaining control of one of their monsters, and then Zexal can't be destroyed for the rest of this turn. The steal is cool, but remember that he's already indestructible with Etio on field since he's a warrior, and Taidu gives him even more attack. Critical, Totem Bird, Lars, and Swamp Deity protect from anything that might threaten his board dominance. Effectively, the entire deck is built around using him as a lock piece and protecting him from every possible angle. Critical hits Dark Ruler, Lars stops evenly, and even if they kaiju him, we still have an incredibly imposing board. We just have to actually play Yu-Gi-Oh! Now. And since with a good hand we can make 2 of these, they then protect each other from targeting and create a full-on no-target soft lock that, again, is basically only outable via Lava Golem. Lastly, Malong is a synchro target for Ultimate Slayer that bounces, Garura is a Slayer target that draws a card, and we can make Apophis off of Serpent and Swamp Deity, most commonly when we open That's 10. That then lets us set those cards again to use as negates, then overlay Divine Serpent as a level 6 material for Lars for another Omni Negate. That was a lot since it's a 60 card combo deck, but let's go look at it in motion where hopefully it'll make a lot more sense. Alright, so first up is our best and also simplest combo. This is our 1.5 card Tour Guide combo. We just need anything to discard late in the combo for Taidu since we don't get like a free card draw or anything. Let's get started. So we start by normal summoning Tour Guide. Tour Guide can summon Dokuro Yaiba out of the deck, and we can go into Exegard because we already have our vanilla on board. Summon Zeptwing by detaching the Dokuro Yaiba. Search Critical, bring it back, overlay 2 for Gabonga to go grab Doug. Doug summons itself by detaching from Gabonga, make sure you don't detach from Exegard. Searches us Grand Breakout, which we can use to tribute the Big Gabonga, which brings out Clattersploder, but Big Gabonga comes right on back thanks to Clattersploder's effect, but we have another 2/3s now. So we can detach material to go summon Glorious Audra, which can put both of our Argo Stars on the board, and then we can discard a random card, that's the one random card we've been sitting on, to summon Taidu, which gets us another Etio. Then we can, I mean, you can do this at any point here, but the both the MX Saber Invoker and Gabanga overlay for Zexal, and then our Taidu becomes Arion, which searches us the field spell. So then we can activate the field spell, and we can discard the Etio to turn our now spent Arion into Utopic Ray Lancer, and then use Home Stadium to add the Etio back, set 2, and this is going to be our end board. We've got 2 bounces that also come with 2 slow negates. We've got targeting protection, we've got a 4000 attack body, we've got a mind control, we've got an omni negate, and we win battle automatically and negate everything when the opponent tries to go to battle phase. So already just off of the tour guide and anything to discard, this is an incredibly difficult to crack board that only gets better if you see other starters or extension. So most of our combos are similar to the first one that I just showed you, with some subtle differences. This one's going to be a little bit different. We're not going to be able to get to critical, but instead we're going to be able to make our second Utopic Future Zexal. And I wanted to take this opportunity to show you what That's 10 does in our combo. So let's get started. So we're going to activate That's 10 immediately and then special summon Terrortop. The summon is inherent, so it doesn't trigger That's 10, but the search for Takatomborg sure does. And then we can summon the Takatomborg again inherent and go into Big Gabanga to go grab Doug. That's 2. Doug can detach a material to summon himself. That's 3, but also you can see here and upcoming that That's 10, because it's optional, can be used to chain block a bunch of stuff while it's on board. It's a super cool effect of it. So we can chainlink 1 Doug to go search Grand Breakout, chainlink 2 That's 10, that means they can't Ash or anything the Doug, which is very, very neat. So then we get Grand Breakout, that's 4 from the search itself. We can tribute Gabanga to go grab Gone Wild. I grab Gone Wild here instead of just Clattersploder because 1, he's going to summon the Clattersploder, protected from That's 10, but we need 2 level 6 bodies, and That's 10 represents a level 6 body. So the Gone Wild here is just going to sit there and be our second level 6 for after we trigger That's 10. A little bit complicated, but you'll see what I mean. So that is 5, we special summon Clattersploder, Clattersploder summons back Big Gabanga while protected by That's 10, and then That's 10 goes to 7 counters, go into Exiguard, detach a material. This is the reason that we can't get critical, is because to keep going, if we have nothing else in hand, if we have no extenders, we have to summon Gigadra, which means we can't summon Zeptwing. Zeptwing is what searches us the critical. That's okay, end board looks different, but it's still pretty good. Gigadra discards a card to summon Dokuro Yaiba. That's going to be 9, and then we can use everything to go into our first Utopic Future Zexal and Invoker. Invoker summons Audra from deck, and the summon is going to be 10, which means we can set Apophis the Serpent, and then banish Audra to make space on our board by placing our 2, activate Serpent, summon itself, set Swamp Deity, summon Swamp Deity, use them both to contact fuse into Big Apophis. Big Apophis sets both of them for negates and follow up for next turn, and then we can overlay for Lars, and then continue doing the Argo Stars stuff by discarding a card to go grab Etio. Then we can overlay into Arion to go get our field spell. Then we can discard the Etio to go into Utopic Ray Lancer, then activate Home Stadium to get back the Etio and use our 2 4s for Utopic Future Zexal. And this is what our end board is going to look like. We lose out on Materiactor Critical, but we have an Omni Negate in Lars, a main phase Omni Negate out of Swamp Deity, follow up by setting an extra Swamp Deity off Serpent, and then we still have the 2 Etios with their 2 slow negates, and we have double Zexal, which means they're protecting each other and nothing on board is targetable, and they're also both just 4,000 attack bodies, so like, you know, just look at it. Is it not beautiful? And we're back with closing thoughts on our Genesys 3-axis deck. So this is my first baby of the format. I've been having a wonderful time with this deck. I briefly mentioned during the deck profile, but I didn't want to get too deep into it there, that this was made in response to my local Genesys meta rapidly becoming a board breaker only format. There's basically no hand traps going around just because hand traps are so expensive and board breakers are so cheap or completely free. So I wanted to devise a combo deck using materials that I already had, decks and engines that I already enjoy, that could make as close as possible to a completely unbreakable end board, and this is where I got, and I'm quite proud of it. On a bad hand, this deck normally makes 2 negates and the Utopic Futures Exile through like a single disruption, which is crazy. And then on a good hand, you end up with like either 1 or 2 Zexals, a Lars, a Totem Bird, like 3 to 4 negates and 1 to 2 Zexals, and then follow up and bounce coming from the Argo Stars engine. I know the Argo Stars engine is the weirdest looking thing here, but it is our grind game. It is our recursion. It is our follow-up. And it does a very good job of that while simultaneously protecting Zexal and making him bigger. Like, the deck just flows together very well, and it feels very, very good. It took a bit of trying to weed out as many bricks as I possibly could, and there's still a few here. Unfortunately, as anyone who plays Goblin Bikers knows, the worst cards in Goblin Bikers are the goblins themselves, and the best cards are like your Tour Guide, your Terrortop, your Grand Breakout. So we do have a few bricks, but like they're not even that bad. Say you open a Dokuro Yaiba, as long as you also open like a tracker or a wielder or, you know, anything to special summon from hand, that's still full combo. But it does, you know, have some brickiness. It seems like I almost never will brick, but the deck does get worse into actual hand traps. That is kind of the point, is that this loses more to hand traps than it does to breakers. But even then, if you start Terrortop, like you summon Terrortop, search Takatomborg, you get Drolled, you get Dimension Shifted, that's okay, you still summon Takatomborg, overlay both for MX Saber Invoker, MX Saber Invoker detach a material to summon Audra, and then Audra can place 2, you don't get to the field spell or your second Etio, but that is still follow up in 1 disruption through Droll, or if it's under Dimension Shifter instead, you can do the full Argo Stars thing, so you can get to your field spell and the Etio, and then if you happen to have like a That's 10 or a Pophis the Serpent, or Swamp Deity for that matter, you can still set up a pretty significant board under Shifter. Droll's a little bit worse for us, but we can still, depending on the hand, regularly get, like if we start Tour Guide, we get to the point where we have Materiactor Critical online and 2 bodies on board before we can be Drolled. Then we can turn the 2 bodies into Invoker, go into a partial Argo Stars line with Critical, and that's, you know, 3-4 disruptions under Droll. It's such a cool deck, and it has so much play through so many things, and its end board is wackadoo, and I've been really enjoying this, and I wanted to share. So that'll be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.